Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely bizarre mystery. We're talking about spooky, sinister dolls, completely invisible culprits, and what looked to the entire country like a very real supernatural curse. But as you'll see when we unpack the details, we're going to reveal the very modern cybersecurity vulnerabilities hiding right behind the illusion.
Okay, let's jump right in. Picture this. People harnessing dark energies to plunge the world into chaos. That cheery thought came from Denver Artridge. He's a TV psychic who went on air and essentially broadcast absolute panic. And the spark for his warning? Creepy dolls that the media decided to dub the gift, which were seemingly materializing out of thin air inside locked cars across 10 different cities.
And here's the kicker. There were 0 car alarms triggered, not a single trace of break-ins caught on security cameras anywhere. So naturally, the public was utterly terrified. It forced a very logical question. Are we actually dealing with ghosts here? Or are we looking at the work of incredibly sophisticated hackers pulling off the ultimate illusion?
All right, Section 1. The mystery of the gift and its supposedly supernatural facts.
Let's put on our detective hats for a second and step into the shoes of the lead investigator on this case, Detective Ace. If we logically examine the phenomena, the facts look impossible. The dolls appeared in 10 cities, 0 alarms, completely invisible on closed-circuit television, and most disturbingly, finding the doll was immediately followed by reports of severe bad luck. The media whipped up an absolute frenzy over this, leaving victims utterly terrified of an invisible threat.
But, this reveals a massive disconnect between panic and reality. The media, of course, ran with this. They pushed a narrative of a bad luck curse, citing small house fires or a kid's hurt arm, and attributing it all to evil magic. But Detective Ace, he saw reality. These were just normal, everyday accidents. We live in a world where bad things occasionally happen, right? But when you're already deeply paranoid from finding a creepy doll in your locked car, a totally mundane accident suddenly feels like a sinister curse. Which brings us to Section 2. Hacking the security cameras to bypass security. This is where the magic trick completely falls apart. And it all came down to a tiny, entirely overlooked physical detail: a scratch. Ace was examining a victim's car and noticed a fresh scrape on the bumper. The car's owner confirmed, she had misjudged a bend and grazed a pole the night before. But when detectives reviewed the supposedly flawless CCTV footage from that morning, the scratch wasn't there. Think about that. That meant the spotless, empty security footage was actually a complete digital fake. Turns out you don't need to be a ghost to walk past a camera. You just need to hack a local network. This criminal enterprise simply targeted weak smart devices connected to the victim's shared home Wi-Fi. They exploited the fact that so many people literally never changed the default passwords on their cameras. Once they were in, hackers patched in a loop of pre-recorded empty CCTV footage. Under that digital cover, a very human car thief simply unlocked the car, placed the doll inside, and vanished, before turning the live feedback on, like a scene out of a heist movie. Moving on to Section 3, fueling mass hysteria and, more importantly, finding the motive. Because with the how completely solved, Detective Ace still had to figure out the why. Seriously, think about the logistics required here. Running a criminal ring with skilled hackers and stealthy car thieves operating across 10 different cities? That is incredibly expensive and risky. So why invest all that effort to create a massive sensation without claiming fame or asking for a single cent in ransom? What was the hidden payout? Here's the twist. Section 4, the hyper-targeted ad scam, the real motive. The answer wasn't in the physical world at all. It was waiting quietly in the victim's personal digital feeds in the form of hyper-targeted marketing. Now, this is the practice of scooping up your personal browsing data, mapping out your psychological inclinations, and serving highly specific advertisements directly to you. The mastermind wasn't just pulling a prank. They were utilizing modern data tracking to turn manufactured fear into a highly lucrative, completely invisible sales funnel. These victims who received the gift weren't just random people on the street. They were specifically hand-picked because their digital footprints gave them away.
We're talking about people who spent their time online browsing conspiracy theories, researching end-of-world predictions, and listening to occult podcasts. The scammer knew, based purely on data, that these specific individuals were already heavily predisposed to believe in curses, bad energy, and sinister magic. And that leads us to Section 5, Profiting from Manufactured Fear, where the trap is finally sprung.
So the victim finds the creepy doll, and they inevitably experience a normal bout of bad luck, like they stub their toe or drop their phone, and boom, the trap snaps shut. There was no loud TV campaign selling a cure, no public storefront. Instead, there was just a quiet, perfectly timed ad served silently into the victim's social media feeds for a return talisman. It was a charm guaranteed to send your bad luck away. And the incredible, evil irony of it all, the person manufacturing this fake protection talisman was the exact same mastermind who paid the thieves to break into their cars in the first place. Create the disease, sell the cure.
1 million. That is how many they sold. By weaponizing personal browsing data and stoking a media-fueled panic, this scammer sold over 1 million talismans in just over 2 weeks. It was a completely quiet business operation that generated an absolute fortune before Detective Ace finally tracked down the manufacturing warehouse and shut the whole shebang down.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, consider this. The gift showed us that while dark magic and curses are usually an illusion, the data you leave online is very, very real. Your browsing history is essentially a map to your fears. So ask yourself, what do your digital breadcrumbs say about you? And are they making you the perfect target for the next engineered panic? Something to think about the next time you click. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep your data safe.